Yeah, let's start today's session. Today is the 7th June 2024 and we are learning Angular. This is the web development series. We have covered HTML5, CSS3, JavaScript and DOM. This is the third lecture on the Angular. If you want to check the previous videos, kindly check the playlist. Okay, yesterday we have seen Angular and the Bootstrap integration. And what Bootstrap integration, that was the yesterday's topic, right? I have uploaded video on this as well. And today we are going to see, so this is the updated website from Angular. Just click on the components, right? Today,
Sharing your screen
yeah, just a minute, let me share my screen.
and
And
show me the site as well.
yeah,
Because I
Angular
can see only two videos.
angular.dev. If you see this, angular.dev is the website. Now, under the component section, let's go here, and there are a lot of things under the component section. This is the official website. Let me open our project and we will talk about the components now. React Web Dev Angular. So this was the yesterday's project that we have created, and today again we will create new Angular project. Can you tell me the commands, please? How shall I create Angular project?
Engineer and project name.
Okay, what is the directory that we are storing all these things?
Mm, we have created a separate directory.
Web Dev Angular.
Yeah.
It is the Web Dev Angular CD, Web Dev Angular, and CD day 48. This is the overall days, but for the Angular it's the third or fourth day. Fourth day, I think. .48 day. .49, and in this day 49 CD day 49 ng nvm use 18. This is for me, not for you guys. nvm, sorry, ng new understanding components, comp working, comp working, ng new. I want to use the plain CSS. Hit the enter. Do you want the SSR? No. And it is creating the things now. Anatomy of the components. What do you mean by Angular component? What do you mean by Angular? I will come back to you after learning this components chapter. Okay. After learning this components chapter, at that time I am going to explain what is Angular. But first you need to know a solid idea about the Angular. Right? So, anatomy of the components. Let us see, project have been created. Yeah, it is created. We have discussed this directory structure, right? So first index.html is going to get loaded. These are the global styles where you can add your bootstrap related things or third party CSS framework related things. And this app is your root component that has been written over here, app root. Today we are going to discuss what is Angular component. What we are going to discuss, what is component. We would be talking about Angular components. Can you tell me what do you mean by component? When you say component, every component must have a TypeScript class with behavior such as handling input and fetching the data from server, an HTML template that controls what renders into the DOM, and the CSS selector that defines the component used in name. So this is the CSS selector, this is the template, HTML template, and this is the TypeScript class. So when you talk about the component, what is component? A TypeScript class with the behaviors such as handling the user input and fetching data from server. An HTML template, this is the HTML template that controls the UI or the DOM, you can say. And the CSS selector, this thing is called as CSS selector, right? So this is the CSS selector we have. Then this is the component we have. This is the component we have. Every component must have a TypeScript class, this annotation attached, CSS selector, and the template either over here, or you can have a template in a separate file the way here you are having, right? Just remove all the things. So this is the template. If you want to write template over here, you can straight away write HTML here as well. You can write HTML here as well. H1, hey, hi, that is also okay. That is also okay. You may write the style here also, or you may remove it. Optional style is there. But you need to have selector is mandatory. What do you mean by these two things? Forget about it right now. Forget about it right now. Consider that as if they are not there. I can remove this also. Consider that even this line is not there. Okay? Consider that only these two things are there. Right? Selector, app root, hey, hi. Let's run the project. Can you tell me how do you run the project? CD?
Yeah. Engine start.
Okay. npm start.
NPM.
npm start. Internally, it's the ngserve command is mapped. And here you can go localhost 4200 4200. Hey, hi. Can you see that? Now, if I ask you to define the component, how do you define? Every component must have a TypeScript class with the behavior such as handling the user input, fetching the data from server. An HTML template comes with the CSS. You don't need to write a separate CSS, right? HTML template that controls what renders into the DOM, and the CSS selector class. This is the CSS selector. By means of this, you can select the elements. Now, the object.
So here, Anirudh, the CSS selector means not just like HTML. I mean,
First, tell me, what do you mean by CSS selectors? If you remember, we have a CSS class. You can select the CSS by means of ID, right? By means of ID. You can select by means of class name. You can select by means of element name, or you can apply the pseudo classes. So these are the basic selectors, CSS selectors, right? And we have the pseudo selectors also. So whenever you are saying CSS selector, it is coming from that ideology, this ideology. Selecting the HTML elements into the CSS, right? Just a minute. Are you getting that? Hello?
Yes. Yes.
So you can select the CSS by means of these many things. Now tell me, when you say app root CSS selector means what? So when I say app root is my
Yeah.
CSS selector means what? So you
This
can
is the tag. This is the HTML.
correct. So whenever you are going to use this if you wanna use this component in the HTML, you are going to write app root, right?
Mm-hmm.
App root. You getting my point?
Yeah.
Whenever you are going to write that, you would be writing app root. Okay. Now the CSS file is not required, it is optional. This spec file is not required right now, it is optional. Now when you talk about the app component, what is there? Even this HTML file is not required right now, delete it. So your component would need all the things that are needed. If you want to apply the CSS, you can say style. If you want to apply the CSS, you can say styles. It's an array. And here you can write the styles. Say h1, h1, and just a minute, h1, h1 border 1 border 1px solid red, 1px solid red. Anything is missing? Border, we have h1. Yeah, that quotes are not required. Can you see that? So this is the CSS selector. You have app root. Here is the template and the styles. You don't need anything. Technically, you don't need anything. But not every time you have only this much markup, and not only time you are going to have only one style, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would be having much lengthier styles. So at that time, it is not feasible to write it in one file only. And that's why Angular came up with new idea. You can write all those things in the separate files. It is not a good idea to write everything in one file, because presently there is only h1 and there is only this thing. But it's not the case every time, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's why what happens is that it says that let's create a separate files. Instead of writing template over here, let's have a template URL. Let's have what? Template URL. And here we can give a name of the template. Here we can say my HTML, my, or any name, app dot component dot HTML, right? And styles also, instead of writing, okay, what I will do, let's have a template and I will comment that thing. H1, hey, hi. So whenever you use it, you will get to know that this is the same thing we are doing. Styles, here we can say style URL. style URL app.css. Okay, so let's create one file here. Now new file app.css and new template app.html. New file app.html. Say h1. Hey hi css h1 border 1px solid red. Could not find the template file app.html in the current directory. Where is that? In the current directory? Yeah, it's in the current directory. You need to specify in the current directory, you will find app.html. So writing this over here and writing this over here and separating over here is one and same. So here you don't get the IntelliSense. Here also you don't get the IntelliSense. If you write separately, you get full-fledged functionality of the HTML and full-fledged functionality of the CSS. That is the only difference. Correct? Now, whenever you think of Angular, it is a nesting of the components, right? It is what? Nesting of the components. So here I want to show the to-do list. To-do list is my top component. Into that to-do item is my inner component, and this is in the app component, right? So parent of this to-do list is the app component. So to-do list contains the to-do item, right? Let's try to build it. How do you create the components? Let's go here. Angular gives few, CLI gives few commands. It is not necessary to use the CLI. You can create a separate files, absolutely fine. If you think that you want to create the separate files, you can create separate files manually over here, right? And I wanted to remove this guy also, standalone true. We are going to talk about it, standalone true. Okay. This file is also not needed, approutes.ts. Approutes.ts is not needed. Just delete this thing also. Delete this thing also. Delete this thing also. Still your Angular application works as it is. No problem. Right? I'm just reducing the files to make you more comfortable. And here you have app component.ts. But you need, okay, so there is one, I will come back to this thing later on. Let's not add it over here. Let's put standalone true as it is. That's fine. Okay. Now I want to create a new component. NGGC ng generate. G stands for generate, C stands for component. I want to create a new component, and name of the component is to do list, and hit the enter. Can you see it has created 4 files: a CSS file, HTML file, spec file, and the TS file. Under the app, it has created to-do list folder. Go here. Under the app, it has created to-do list folder. Let's remove this spec file. We don't need it. If you want to keep HTML and the CSS separate, you can do that. No problem. We can keep that separate. And in this to-do list, HTML, I just wanted to have unordered list. What is unordered list? And the list item. I want to do the list items like this. Say mobile recharge, mobile recharge, then bike servicing. If it is not done, we can show this thing.
How can you are adding the images?
Bike. What?
The images?
These are not images, these are the emojis.
Sorry, emojis.
So with the Mac, you get one option, one button over here. On the Mac, there is a button. So here you can say gym. Okay, that has been done. Then you can say a dinner, like this. This is my to-do list. Okay, this green symbol says that done and not done. Here you can say book reading. Okay, now this is the to-do list. I need to add this to-do list over here, a div section into that. Now what is the CSS selector for to-do list? App to-do list. Copy this, paste it, app to-do list, and npm start app to-do list. App to-do list is not known element. Okay, this is the app to-do list. To-do list. Okay, it is like this. To-do list. App to-do list dot component dot html. Okay, app to-do list. Just refresh it. Just remove the imports we don't need. It's standalone true. It's standalone true. Are we missing something? Are we missing something? Your app HTML. This is your app HTML. And okay, got it. And you can go to the app component.ts. Where is app component.ts? We have commented that imports section, right? We just write imports, and into that you can say to do list component. Just refresh it. Yeah, can you see hey hi, and below that we can see our to-do list. So this I had deleted this, that's why I forgot to add this thing over here. But see, you created the to-do list separately and you added that to-do list into your app component. Okay, now first tell me, how shall I remove these bullet points? I want to remove these bullets. Bullets, can you tell me?
Yeah.
How shall I remove the bullet?
Num type, list type style none.
Say that again.
List type style
Correct.
none.
So shall I apply here or here? Where shall I apply exactly? To the UL or LI? To the UL. Style list style type none, right? Bullets have been disappeared. Margin 0. Okay, let us see what thing is adding that. This is the UL. Can you see some space is getting added?
Mm-hmm.
Padding inline start. These are the user agent styles. Can you see here? User agent styles. Padding 0, right? So we have overridden the user agent. Means to the every element, browser adds some things, right? So this thing, user agent means browser. Remember that. Who adds these things? Browser. This is your style. So browser have given the 40px margin. Can you see this 40px margin is given to you by browser? To make it 0, you can write the class also, right? Make or say dot cool what cool ul padding 0, padding 0, and list style type none. Nothing, there is Angular has nothing to do with CSS. Whatever we have learned in the HTML, CSS, JavaScript, as it is applicable, right? Can you see this thing? Now this is the component list that we have created, but I want this list item to be interactive.
Oh, Anirudh,
Yeah,
can you explain that how you include this, how you link this component with the root component? This to-do list component,
what shall I explain?
this newly created component, that is to-do list component with the root component.
In the app component, how you have imported? Is that your question?
Yeah, how did you link?
If you go to this app HTML, can you see here app to do list?
Mm-hmm.
This is one thing, and in your app component.ts, just have imported this thing. Under the imports, to do list component have been written over here.
This is the class name.
Yeah, this is the class name, to do list component. Any
So,
question?
any component, any new component, if you
Mhm.
add, you need to add its reference into the root component.
Correct. Just write this thing, app to do list, like this.
Okay, and suppose just a question. For example, if your to-do list component also have one nested component, that also we need to add
Let us
here.
see. Let us see. That's what the next part is. So I would be creating one more component, nggc. I don't want to create nggc. Now inside a to-do list, I want to create a new component, say item, list item. So Angular CLI
Just a minute.
Create component.
Just a minute.
Okay.
Hello.
Yes. Shall I move ahead?
Yes, yes.
Okay. So I want to create a new component now. And I'm searching for the flags, semantics builders, command reference, ngGC. C means class. No. CLI reference, ng ng generate, this one. I want to generate the component ngGC, arguments string, export flat, create a new files at the top level in the current project, inline style, inline template, which means that it will not create the separate file. Prefix project selector, skip import, skip selector. Okay. So flat, we need to pass the option ng generate component name and the options flat. There is no alias to the flat. I know all these commands, but for you I'm searching like this. Under the to-do list folder, I need to generate the list item flat, we can say. Inline style, alias, just say S, and inline template, just say T, and hit the enter. Component ngGC. Do we need flat? Yeah. Yeah, double hyphens were needed. Now can you see, it has not created a separate folder, and it has created only two files, a spec file and the list item component ts file, right? Hello?
Yeah, what it is.
Now if you go, in the earlier case, it has created separate to-do list folder. There is no separate folder for the list item. If you look at the command ngGC to-do list hyphen list item, means inside the same folder I want to create the list item. Flat means do not create new folder. Hyphen hyphen s means do not create inline, do not create a separate style file, separate css file. Hyphen hyphen t means do not create separate template file. It should be inline. So I will remove this spec file right now. You don't need it. Remove it. And can you see list item component ts inline? Inline, right? Styles is inline, and this is inline. Now here the to-do list component we have, this HTML we have. So I want this list item. So this would be li, this would be li, and inside this li I would be having something like this mobile recharge. Now in here I will create a separate ul, and inside that we can have, just go to this guy, app list item, app list item, app list item. Okay, app list item, you can have multiple items like this, and if you go here and refresh it, why? Okay, server is stopped. Just refresh it, npm start, app list item is not known again. We need to import it into this guy now, to do list component, import, and the component list item component, refresh it. Can you see these things, right? And now if you want to apply the styles, inline styles we have, if you see this ul, just class ul we have forgotten, class ul, and see styles are getting applied. So look at the architecture. First you have app component, inside app component you have to do list component, and inside to do list component there are list items, multiple list item components. This was your question, right? To do list component, here we have added the list item component, and multiple times this have been created in this way, correct?
So, can you share that command?
Can you share what?
That command.
Yeah, nggc, see here,
Yes, and what was the last one?
see this is the command nggc, 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 ng, your, what we can say, our executable that we downloaded after at Angular CLI. G stands for generate, C stands for component. This to-do list is a folder. This list item is a component name. This flat says that do not create folder. This hyphen s says that inline style, do not create a separate css file. This says that inline template, do not create separate html, right? It would be like this. Now you can see over here mobile recharge many times, correct? I want to pass the data, I wanted to pass the data. how do you pass the data? Right? How do you pass the data? That we will see on Monday.
Which data you are seeing?
Can you see this is a static data? This is the static data, mobile recharge, that you have written directly into here, mobile recharge. But I want this data to be a dynamic, right? I want this data to be dynamic, even this data to be also dynamic. This should come from an array, but to reach the array, a lot of time is required. How this data to be made dynamic, that we want to see. Okay, and we'll do that thing on Monday.
Another one question.
Yes.
Can you show the file structure? So here you do this list item component in the same directory at the to-do list component level. Right? So we can also create a child component of the to-do list.
Outside the to-do list, no problem.
No, not outside. Inside the to-do list means it should be a child component of the to-do list.
Necessarily not. If you have written this list item inside to-do list, which doesn't mean that this is the child component. Folders,
maybe sibling.
folder structure can be anything, and the component parent child relationship can be anything. It has nothing to do with this folder structure. This component parent and child relationship has nothing to do with this folder structure. So I have
in that case, suppose if you create one more folder in the to-do list folder, for example, and in that you create a new component into that.
Okay.
So that doesn't mean that newly created component under ABC is a child component.
No, it doesn't absolutely mean. It is not in any ways it is a child of this to-do list. That's what I'm telling you. The folder structure has nothing to do with this parent and child of at component, right? Selector object is missing. Here you can say selector app my standalone true template. This is what you are asking me, right? H1 hey hi. It has nothing to do, it is not a child of the to-do list. Nothing is happening over here. No child. You just have created this under the ABC folder, which doesn't make this ABC or this my component as a child of this to-do list.
So same like child, you can create a parallel component at the level of to-do list as well.
Yes, you can create new folder ed or delta component. Just copy this. We can use the command also. Even file names can be anything, no problem. And you can paste it, my delta component.
So we can interlink them as per our wish.
Yes, that's what I told you.
Means I can bring this newly created
Anywhere.
component in the app.
Anywhere.
Component as well as
Yes, here also you can write directly section app my delta. You can write this in this to-do list also. It has nothing to do. So this folder structure has nothing to do with the parent and child relationship of components. This folder structure, I'm saying again, has nothing to do with the parent and child relationship of the components.
Okay, so in that case, suppose just expand the to-do list folder.
Mm-hmm.
Here in the ABC, suppose you created one HTML file and there, suppose there is one class.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I want to include that class into the root component.
Just
So
a
you
minute.
just specify the name of the.
I need to rectify your statement. You cannot create any HTML file in the class. It should be component.
Right.
It should be Angular component. And
Right.
whenever you say Angular component, they have clearly stated
Right.
these three things should satisfy.
Right.
Right? And then you can use the selector anywhere. This guy anywhere. You
Okay,
cannot
so
create any
that,
HTML
that
over here.
selector should be unique in that.
Unique, correct.
So there is no need, like suppose we are referring to any file, we add the path like dot slash and something. Or in case of selector, you can directly.
Yeah, you can use it like this directly.
That must be unique.
Correct. Just at the importing, you need to know my. Okay, here from here you just need to export it. Where is that my delta component? You need to export it. My delta com. What is the name of that guy? That is inside delta. So first import it. Import from delt / this my delta comp delt, and this is not exported. Export. That's it. And you have used it. There is no error. Okay.
Yeah, after import statement, this this class is automatically added into that import section.
This one?
When you add this import line.
No. I have written it
Or
explicitly. Sometimes your IntelliSense work, that is about, it is not related to Angular.
Yeah,
It is
but
related.
I'm just asking, means we have to add it at two places.
Yeah, sometimes it automatically comes when you write over here. Sometimes it automatically comes over here. Sometimes it not. It's a bug in the editor. We need to at that time type it manually like this. So is that, make it very clear, folder structure has nothing to do with the parent and child relationship of the component. That's it.
But for our understanding, we divide. We are developing one application. So for our understanding, we make different components.
Yeah, that might be your specific need, but in the documentation, Angular has nowhere written like that. And there are some projects which are using any components in any way. For your understanding purpose, you can make that rule, but it is not from the Angular. Angular is giving you the freedom of writing it anywhere. Even you can write all the components in the app folder directly. For the static website, that is a good architecture. If you wanna do that in a folder specific and child specific way, you can do that, but it is not a requirement from the Angular. That is the just question of the maintainability and the understanding. But Angular doesn't ask you to do that.
Okay, and just open this to-do list folder.
Okay.
You have created these three means when you created the component for the to-do list, three files are created, and for the list item component, you specifically provided that command.
Yes.
With some options.
Correct.
So it does not create the other two files. Right?
Correct.
So in that case, you can access the HTML and CSS of created of other component as well.
Yes. So here I have created HTML and CSS. And inside HTML, I have written app list items, which means that I can access the TS and the HTML of app list item here.
Right.
You need practice. HTML CSS3. Okay, let me stop the recording.